Good evening. Welcome to the overnight edition of From Day One. Art Bell and the out-of-body experiences of Mr. Taylor are with us in the overnight. So without further ado, let's resume.
Therapy, whatever. But when he said I was okay, I knew that, okay, that means I'm on my own. I got to go back to the situation that's happening several times a night and deal with it.
Right.
And because I'm a researcher, I thought, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to document my descent into insanity. And that's how my book...
it honestly sounds like a real train of thought that I can understand for somebody who's in the hard sciences and is trying to figure out what the hell's going on in their own mind.
Right.
It's
and
logical.
I figured I was going to go crazy. I was losing it, Alzheimer's, whatever the problem. And I figured when they found me babbling and drooling in the corner,
yes,
my book would be laying there, and they could figure out how I got there. That's what I was doing.
All right. So you qualify easily as an expert on OBEs. Let's do this. Let's do how to have or how to increase the possibility of your having an OBE. What would your list of suggestions be, please?
Okay. First of all, it happens to almost everybody every night. We just don't remember. So one of the techniques is to remember it's happening. Okay, that's one of the things. We sleep, depending on how tired you are, we sleep very, very heavy in the beginning, and then we come up to a lighter REM state toward the morning, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, right before we wake up.
Well, I already want to stop you on number one. You said the first most important thing is to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do we differentiate? How are we to know the difference between a very, very graphic dream, and some of them are, and an OBE?
Well, because dreams you forget about. Sometimes you don't even remember when you wake up, and even when you do remember them, they don't usually have any profound emotional impact on you. An out-of-body experience will have a profound impact on you. You will not think of it like a dream. It will laugh. You'll be thinking about it. You'll have questions. You may experience that intense fear that I was talking about, because you don't usually experience that in a dream, not this intense. So they will be so different that you will not forget about it.
Okay.
At all.
All right, that's number one. Then number two is, number two.
Okay. So basically, one of the things that I discovered is that toward the early morning part, we remember our dreams more. We have lucid dreams. That's when I was having a lot of lucid dreams. That's when I would fly in my dreams and things like that. So what I did is I experimented on recreating it when it happened naturally.
In what way?
But what I did is I would go to bed about 10 o'clock at night. I'd set my alarm for about maybe 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
I'd get out of the bed and not just reach over and turn it off, because I noticed when I couldn't sleep sometimes and I wake up in the middle of the night and go back to bed, that's when I would have the experience. So I'd get out of the bed, stay up for about an hour, drink water, don't eat anything, just drink water, and then go back to bed and then lay it perfectly still. And this is really important. Lay perfectly still and relax every portion of your body from head to toe.
Okay.
And what's going to happen here is have you ever been really, really tired and you were driving a car, and for that brief second you nodded out, just a brief second, and you startled.
Yes. And when you come back to consciousness, it is sheer terror.
Yeah, definitely. So what you've done in this, I call this the interrupted sleep technique. What you've done is recreated that situation, except now you're in a safe environment. So no matter how hard you try to stay awake, if you're laying perfectly still, you're going to reach that point where the body's going to nod off. It's like it would in the car or something. If you hold still, it's going to happen. Even if you don't, you're going to fall asleep. But the thing is because you've interrupted the sleep pattern and given your body, your consciousness, about 4 hours to rest and sleep, when your body drops off, you're going to be at that heightened awareness state. And you may even, when it happens, And this really shocked me because when it happened, that was the first time I'd ever gone from consciously laying there to into a paralysis state where I couldn't move my physical body.
Right.
I actually heard myself snoring, and I thought it was someone else snoring that was very close behind me, which almost scared me.
Oh, I've heard that a lot.
You actually hear your body snoring.
I've heard
and
that a lot.
Sometimes people hear themselves snoring, and it wakes them up. So that's the state you want to get to.
Yeah, I've been in that state any number of times. In the afternoon, I'll lay down on the couch. If it's boring, whatever I'm watching, I'll lay on my back with my hands behind my head, and I'll start to fall asleep. And I don't know how many minutes later, I hear myself snoring. It's embarrassing, actually.
Right. Well, you've come to a fork in the road right there.
Really?
And because you've altered it with interrupting your sleep pattern, it increases your chances of going into a lucid state rather than you going into a deep sleep state.
All right, hold it right there. I love this subject. OBE's Dr. Albert Taylor is my guest. I'm Art Bell, and this is Midnight in the Desert.
As the midnight moon is drifting through the lazy sway of the trees, I saw the look in your eyes, looking into mine, seeing midnight fantasy, someone to share my wildest dreams with me. Imaginary love.
Midnight in the Desert doesn't screen calls. We trust you, but remember, the NSA. Well, you know, to call the show, please dial 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-CALL ART.
Love that one. Dr. Albert Taylor is my guest. We are discussing OBEs, and I hope some of you have dragged out a piece of paper and are paying attention because he's telling us how to do it. First of all, most importantly, remember. Secondly, you might set the alarm. I know that this just doesn't sound intuitive, but for 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning or something, when you wake up, drink something perhaps, but don't eat, and then get into this relaxed state. Do I have it about right?
That's it. And no matter if you try to stay awake, something's going to happen. You're either going to drift back off into a deep state, which I doubt because of the interrupted time period, or you're going to hear yourself snoring or find yourself paralyzed, or you're going to hear this loud rushing wind. I mean, extremely loud.
Yes.
Or you're going to hear, because it's a vibrational energy thing, you're going to hear a very loud buzzing sound.
That would indicate the beginning of an OBE.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. That is like a road sign. Those are like road signs. The slower you go through the separation process,
yes,
the more you hear.
All
so
right.
The slower you go, if you go through fast, some of those things you may not experience at all. But that slow process, those are things that you're going to hear as your consciousness transitions from a physical state, which is your body, to a higher vibrational state, which is your astral form. It vibrates at a little higher vibration, so you will hear and feel that vibration.
All right, doctor. All right. Let's say that I'm up to step number 4, and I've got the buzzing, and I feel kind of paralyzed, and I want to take the next step. In other words, I want out of my body. This is where I fail. This is where I get scared and I can't make it. What can I do at that juncture to jump, to go?
Well, there's 2 things you need to do first, is that you need to calm down because it's exciting, and the excitement can bring you back. You need to suspend any kind of ideas you have on what's going to happen. Just be an observer. Because if you think about something, you could scare yourself during that process.
Huh.
Yeah, it could happen very easily. And then once that happens, if you can't see already, because sometimes your vision just comes on. If you can't see, say to yourself, I want to see. And it's really, I know it sounds simple, but ask and you shall receive.
Okay.
If you haven't moved anywhere, say, I want to float upward. And that's what usually gets things moving. The difference is, and I've talked to people who've awakened in the state and knew nothing about out-of-body experiences, and one of the things that happens is they find themselves bouncing around the room, experiencing being totally out of control. Well, what's happening there is that you don't know you can control it. It's like jumping in a car and going down a hill and not grabbing the steering wheel. Every bump it hits, it's going to veer off and go in a direction. But know that you can control this by your desire and being able to focus on what you want to happen.
Okay. Now, let's move on. Let's say that the impossible happens and I make it out. Can I then choose a destination, and if so, how?
Well, if it's a person, which is easier than a location, a physical location, if they have an emotional impact on you while you're in the waking state, you should be able to think of them very easily. A loved one, your mother, a dear friend, something like that. If you can think of them, all you have to say is, I want to visit, or I want to be with, and something strange might happen. Is like I touched on earlier, you're not alone, so you may not be able to see them, perceive them, because we're not talking about light coming through the optic nerve and bouncing off the retina or anything. We're talking about a sensation. You may feel someone touch you or grab you and push and assist you in the direction that you want to go in.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that.
I recommend, that's the way it is. But think of it more like a guardian angel. I mean, everybody accepts the fact that it's not going to harm you in any way, and that's basically what I'm talking about. You can call it anything you want, but it's the same thing. But I recommend for beginners, stay local. Do it. Get better at it. Stay in the room. Move around the room.
Okay.
Touch things.
All right.
Touch things. Put your hands through things. Move into a different part of the house. Look for, if you have children, go visit and look for the children. What you will find is something really interesting. Like I mentioned with the doctor who had the heat pad around her leg, is that you can interact with them in a way depending on how consciously they are aware. They may not be that aware, or they may be, but you can. The more aware they are, the more you can interact with them. And it's really, really interesting. And like I said, that's why it's so hard to go beyond that, because you have to focus, is because there's so many incredible things you can do in the near vicinity of your body, your physical body.
Just think how you could have messed with her. Turned her heating pad up to 120.
If I could move physical objects in that state, that would be very interesting. I don't think that it may not be impossible in the future for someone, but that would be an awesome talent or capability.
It would be. Anyway, I'm just messing with you. I know you can't affect physical things.
Can only wish.
Right. There is never a case in that state where you can affect anything physical, right?
No, I haven't been able to, and I haven't heard or had any reports of anybody else being able to. But during the paranormal, of course, we have heard and seen video of non-physical consciousness moving objects. So let's say it's not impossible, but it doesn't seem to apply to an astral traveler or an out-of-body experiencer.
Well, when I interviewed Preston Bennett, I asked him what I asked you years ago, and I will ask again now, and that is, can anything go wrong? And is there anything dangerous about it? And his first reaction, like yours, was, oh, no, nothing can ever go wrong, and if it does, you snap right back into your body like a rubber band that's just been let go of. Right? That's the answer.
The worst thing that can happen is you scare yourself because you encounter something that's unknown. This is the thing that I discovered, and I've been afraid of things like this since I was a little tiny kid, since I was 5 years old. And I said this, remember I shared this with you before. Going into the astral plane and not wanting to see ghosts is like going into the ocean and not wanting to see fish.
Huh.
That's where they are. So you projecting, or if you're scared of that, or you have a fear about that, the worst thing that could possibly happen is that you will scare yourself. But not everybody who is on the other side is angelic. That doesn't mean you're going to meet, these wonderful souls over there. People carry a lot of their traits and who they are when they're over there at the lower state of the astral. So
nasty on this side, nasty on that side.
Yeah, so you could have a negative experience with something or someone, but the thing is you always have I call it my ejection seat. You can always return to the physical, and they can't.
Okay. And then there's one more step I'll take, and that is this. Can you be absolutely sure? I mean, we know that, you've heard the old expression, dead men tell no tales, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't, as far as I know. How many people every year in the world die in their sleep? Answer, many, many, many.
Mm-hmm.
How can you be sure that some of those people, of the many, 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 didn't die when something went wrong when they were out of body?
Okay, I don't think you can cause it to happen. I don't think you have that much power, because there's a bigger story going on. There's a lot more that you are a part of, and that you are important to, and part of that importance is your interaction in day-to-day life and how you affect people. So you can't interrupt that process just by doing something and remembering something that you normally do subconsciously anyway. So you don't have to worry about that. But the experience is the same. If a person is passing, the probability of them having similar disconnection experiences is going to be high like yours. Let me give you an example. My cousin, Robert, passed away years and years ago. And one of the things that happens in our family is we all have night paralysis issues. A lot of my family they're very superstitious, so they refer to it as witch rides, or the witches are coming to ride you at night because you did something bad, or they're trying to steal your soul. So that's kind of a southern kind of superstition that my family has lived with for a long time. Robert, he also had out-of-body experiences, but didn't know that's what they were.
Okay, I'm going to stop you again, because that's so interesting. You're saying this has been a genetic trait in your family. As
far back as I can remember. Great-great-grandmother, it's been told since I was a little kid, but I've always thought that's what it was, and it's always been something terrible and horrifying, and none of us liked it. And I was the first one to change and just try to be an observer and discover a whole new aspect to it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I find the genetic link very interesting.
I've been all over the place, and I wondered that too. That's because I'm a researcher. I was wondering, okay, is it in my family? Like I said in the beginning, I thought it was a psychosis or a neurological problem. But what I found, having been lucky enough to go all over the world talking to people about this, is it doesn't matter what you are, it doesn't matter what you believe. People of all walks of life have these kind of experiences. And what's really cool is I do this experiment when I talk to people. So let's say I have 100 people in the room. One of the things I start doing is I start mentioning the different aspects of the separation process. I say, if you've ever experienced this and after going to bed at night, raise your hand and keep your hand up. And by the time I touch on the paralysis, the vibration, hearing your name being called, because that's one of them, and flying dreams and all these other things, about 70% of the audience out of 100 still have their hands up. So that's globally about 70% of people are having can remember having these experiences. They just haven't pieced all the puzzles together to figure out, yes, this is something that has to do with having an out-of-body experience.
Well, this is why I believe it. So many people know about it or have done it or wish they could do it, that I believe it. I've been told enough. I absolutely believe it now. A couple of questions. Is there something that remains tethered to your body? I mean, there are stories of a silver cord, that kind of thing. What do you know?
Right. Well, I've looked for it. I don't doubt that some people have seen it, experienced it. What I have a theory about that I've presented in my book. I think it's like there's something called a duality of consciousness that I've discovered, and that means there's part of us thinks like you and I are thinking right now, and then there's another part of us that thinks on a very, very higher level. The two are not disconnected. So if you're fearful in your exploration, I think that, and I may be wrong.
Like training wheels.
It's like breadcrumbs. It's like breadcrumbs.
Training wheels.
You know, yeah, you don't feel totally detached from your physical body. And a lot of people say, well, how do I find my way back? Can I get back in? The silver cord kind of gives you that warm, fuzzy, or security, knowing that if I follow this, no matter how far I go, I'm still connected. Now, that's how I see it, because I've never found it, and I've been out a lot of times, and I've tried to go as many places as I possibly could, flying even into space. So I've never had that experience. Of course, I'm not afraid, but I would imagine that if I were, it would be a really welcome security blanket for me.
Geez, it's like, doing an EVA from the space station with no tether.
Right. Like the old days, we used to have the umbilical, like when Ed White was walking, and Gemini, he had the umbilical that he would use. And then later on, when I was in the space program, we used the MMU, which is the Man Maneuvering Unit, which is totally like in Gravity, the movie Gravity, which was totally untethered.
Oh, by the way, how did you like the movie Gravity?
Oh, man, I was so disappointed.
Were you?
I have trouble watching space movies. I have trouble watching aircraft movies because they use the wrong aircraft. I have problems with this new Steven Spielberg movie with the Francis Gary Powers being shot down because they're using the wrong aircraft. So I know too much about that. I even have problems flying on airplanes because I'm looking out at the flight control. So I had a lot of technical problems with the movie Gravity.
That's kind of disappointing. You saw it in 3D?
No, I didn't see it in 3D.
Okay.
But let me tell you, the technical problems I had is way before I worked on the space program, the astronauts have the capability of maneuvering just in case they get detached from the space station or any vehicle. That the spacesuit that they have has these little firing jets. If you go on the internet, you can see these little jets, and they have the capability of coming back. Another thing is that the physics was all wrong, because when George Clooney and Sandra Bullock were flying through space holding on to the line, and she grabbed onto one structure, and he was way out at the end of an umbilical. All she had to do was just jerk it one time, and that momentum would have brought him right to her. So I had a problem with the physics, but I tried to suspend that and just enjoy it for a theatrical presentation.
I was going to say, somebody who can disassociate themselves enough to actually travel out of their body ought to be able to suspend something or another to enjoy a movie. But I get it. I completely get it, I'm afraid. I don't like to see flaws either. Well, okay.
It's hard.
All right, so...
because, for instance, that new movie that's come out, which I really think is going to be exciting, is the U-2 being shot down over Russia. Well, since I was on the U-2s when I was in the Air Force, I was a crew chief on the R model. They're using an R model, and Francis Gary Powers was shot down in an A model. So, but that's me, That's me.
Well, so ruin another one for us.
I'm sorry. That's me.
Did you see San Andreas?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh, you should see that. In 3D at that. Okay. All right, anyway, back to where we were with OBEs. And you have now, I believe, expanded your research from OBEs to other aspects of the paranormal, correct?
Right. Yes. One of the things I wanted, I noticed that there's a lot of people out there, God bless them, collecting paranormal data. orbs, EVPs, electronic voice phenomena,
Yes.
Different types of digital video imagery,
Right.
Things like that. But one of the reasons I got into it is because I was really trying to draw a connection, because I was having encounters with deceased relatives, and I was trying to see if there was something physically I could do to connect the two. And that's why I looked into the technology that was available today and the activities that people were conducting around the world.
All right, slow up.
Do that.
Slow up. I mean, you just blurt these things out. You were having encounters with dead relatives. Now, that's an artifact of an NDE, not an OBE.
As a matter of fact, I didn't say we didn't. I didn't know that I was going to be going into a realm that we go into when we die. I didn't know about that.
So you're now telling me you wait a minute. You're telling me you can have an OBE and go into the same territory you would go into with an NDE?
An NDE takes you a little further, but everybody exits in that lower level.
Oh, well,
in the beginning.
Yeah, if you start, if you start seeing dead relatives, buddy, that's NDE territory to me.
Yeah, but they don't. That's the thing that we think that we go through a tunnel and we get locked away and we stay there. That's not really how it works. No one gets locked away. That may be part of your panoramic past life experience, because you've heard people say my whole life flashed before me, and you hear about people talking about they experience all the emotions that they've impressed on people through their lives. So you may go through that, you may see the light, you may have an encounter with a higher being, and have a past, but that's not the end. You still exist, so I was shocked when I had an encounter on more than 2 occasions with my deceased aunt, which I didn't expect. I didn't know that's where they were. I had no idea. But it happened on more than 1 occasion, and it was profound. It wasn't just like, oh, by the way. No, it affected me emotionally, because I'd never communicated with a person in that sense, in that way. Like now we're talking. But in that sense, you not only communicate mentally, but you feel the emotion that person, you share emotions. So whatever I'm feeling, my aunt could feel, and whatever she was feeling, I could feel. And that's the part that profoundly affected me.
Holy smokes, Doctor. You're taking a leap that I've heard nobody ever take. I've never heard
it in my book.
Well, it's always in the book, right? I know.
Yeah, but
is that, by the way, is it your new book?
No, it's in Soul Traveler.
Soul Traveler,
the new book is Journey of the Cosmic Soul. What happens is, though, Art, this is what fueled the fire, is that while we were having this exchange, I suddenly realized I'm no different than she is, except I have a physical body to go back to. That had never dawned on me.
Well,
but it's not.
Big difference.
I didn't believe it. I knew it, and that changed everything.
Okay, that's a pretty big difference. You had a body to go back to. She didn't.
Right.
And you said you could feel what she felt. She could feel what you felt, right?
Right. Exactly.
So what can you tell me about the other side?
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Well, that's nice.
Home is where we came from. This is very temporary. This is the paranormal. That's not the paranormal. That's the normal. We will be welcomed and loved and not judged. The only judgment really comes from you, judging yourself on how you lived your life.
I know, I'm afraid of that.
There's no discrimination. Someone wrote me and asked me, they said, I'm gay, and if I go on the other side, do they discriminate against gay? There's no discrimination. There's none of that. None of the earthly things that we have here, that we experience here. And that's the part that we do so often, is we try to humanize and take our human experiences and apply it to something that is far from being human or even physical. It's very, very different. And it's incredibly intense and loving. Like the people who have near-death experiences, they all will describe when they come back from that experience, it was the most incredible love they'd ever experienced in their lives.
Okay. I'm trying to digest this, that you can actually meet with people who have passed. That is, it takes it to a whole nother level. I have become so interested in NDEs. I've actually told a couple of researchers, and it's the truth. You know, I'm 70 years old now, Albert. If I had an opportunity to go with a medical team that had all the right stuff to bring me back, I would be tempted. I'd be tempted to try a flat line.
Right.
Just to see what's on the other side. But what you're saying is you don't need to. You can find out without flatline.
Yes. If it's meant to be, there's a lot going on, but if it's meant to be and you're capable, you can have an encounter with someone who's passed. I don't hear a lot of people have, because everybody differs on their ability. But the ones that I have heard of, and especially I have to talk about Robert Monroe, he has had, it describes in his 3 books, incredible experiences with formerly living human beings and non-human beings that have lived. Because not every entity or entity that you encounter will have had a human life.
Dr. Taylor, do you think that you have a genetic predisposition to this that gives you a really, really big advantage over other people trying to do OBEs?
No. I think maybe I'm the person that when Bigfoot or the monster is running at you, I'm the person that doesn't put the camera down. So that may be a defect, rather than a bonus.
Oh, it is a defect. It's definitely a defect. Anybody who would stand there and not put the camera down as Bigfoot charged deserves every NDE and even permanent thing they get.
I'm so curious. I want to know for myself. It's not about me teaching anybody or preaching or any of those things. It was happening to me, and I was either going crazy or I had to find some kind of rational answer to what was happening, and I had no idea it was going to touch on something that had to do with, the eternity, the existence of a soul, and an environment where souls, live or go back to. I had no idea that. I was thinking, I was taught about heaven and hell and purgatory and those type of things.
So you're honestly telling me that you would stand there with a camera taking video of Bigfoot as he charged you, so that when the detectives came and said, oh, look at the arm over there and the leg over there, and we'll find the head, we'll get some people out here and find the head, they'd be able to have the camera, they'd get the camera, and they'd realize you held it until Bigfoot got you.
Well, I may run at the last minute, but I can tell you this. I've been on some paranormal investigations where some really scary stuff happened.
Yes.
And I was the one standing there with literally a couple members of my team ran out of the location that we were in fear, screaming, and I stayed there filming. I'm just curious about these type of things, and I want to know. So, there's a lot of people who are curious. People want to go to Mars, and they don't care if they come back because they want to know what it feels like.
Would you do that, by the way, one-way ticket to Mars?
Gotta be No, I want a return trip. I would even go on the shuttle after I learned all the things I learned about it. So no.
Wait a minute. Wait. You wouldn't go on the shuttle in view of all the things you have learned?
Yeah, no.
Hate to come back to Earth that hard, but what are you talking about?
I worked in reliability and maintainability. And what reliability and maintainability is that we predict when an item is going to fail, and in how many different ways it's going to fail.
Yes.
The shuttle had 1 million moving parts, and the reliability on everything there's no 100% reliability. And unfortunately, the way the shuttle was designed is that when you have certain failures, it could be a catastrophic failure. So I knew about that already. I knew that it wasn't a matter of time of if it was going to have a disaster was going to happen. It was about when and how many. I knew that. The numbers indicated that, so no, I wouldn't have.
Huh. Did you pass along any of that informed knowledge to the guys who were sitting on those firecrackers?
I wasn't on the shuttle program. I interfaced with them because I was responsible for the mating adapter, pressurized mating adapter.
Yes, yes.
So I was on space station, so they shared information with me. I assume they knew what it was because they shared it with me, so that wasn't my area. If I had been on the shuttle, I definitely would have brought it to the attention because we're talking about astronaut safety.
All right, got it. We've got a break. We're going to open phone lines soon. This is Midnight in the Desert.
When I think back alone, he opened up our minds, and I still can hear him say, oh, talk to me.
Proudly part of the Dark Matter Digital Network, this is Midnight in the Desert with your host, Art Bell. Now, here's Art.
Dr. Albert Taylor is my guest. We're talking about OBEs. That's out-of-body experiences. You can do it. I wish I could do it. I've done it, but just instantaneously, and it scared the fire out of me, and I didn't have the guts to go forward. We're now going to open phone lines, so I'm going to give my phone lecture. Sorry. 101. And here it is. And you're going to get this a lot because we've got affiliates that are going to be joining or are joining and all that kind of stuff. So when we open the lines, here's the way it works. We have one massive public line, which has many, many numbers that roll over. That way I don't have to go east of the Rockies, west of the Rockies, on the Rockies. I don't have to do that. It's area code, the big public number, area code 952-225-5278. That's the modern way to do it. One number, many lines. Area code 952-225-5278. Now, aside from that, we accept calls by Skype. Now, here's how you do it. It's really simple. If you have an iPhone or an Android, just go and download Skype. When you get it, become a little familiar with it, please. Look around. And after you have done so, here's what you do. If you're in North America or Canada, you go in and you hit the little plus sign on Skype, and like you're adding a contact. That would be us. We're the contact. And so you would put in simply MITD51. And then you'll notice we're on your contact list. It's that easy. If you're outside North America, it's MITD55. That's Midnight in the Desert, MITD55. And from then on, we'll be in your contact list. And so when you want to call us, you pick up your phone and just press the contact. And away you go. And, Skype, in most cases, for those who know how to do it, particularly when calling from a smartphone, is so incredibly good that you might as well sound like you're right here in the studio. And now one minor extension to my phone lecture, and that is I'm adding a first-time caller line. This is exclusively for those of you that have never called this program. And that number is area code 775-285-5800. Easy enough, right? But you must be a first-time caller, so you only actually get to do this one time. Well, let's think back. There have been many variations of this show that I've done. I guess you could do it again in the sense that, well, you were there during Dark Matter, you were there during the prior show, so you could still be a first-time caller to this show, right? Area code 775-285-5800. Sorry, I was sort of debating with myself to some degree. So we're opening all those lines right now for Dr. Taylor. Doctor, welcome back.
Thank you.
I would like to ask something in the list of questions. I do get a list of questions. I don't very frequently follow them, but I do get a list of questions, and I understand that you are in some way profoundly disappointed in the paranormal community worldwide, and I would like to know why that is.
Well, let me say I don't fault them. I don't think anybody's done anything intentional, but I think that and this is based on the different locations, geographical locations and countries that I've been to, is we have become complacent, and we have gotten to the point where we've settled for very literally tidbits of paranormal data. We've settled for orbs. We've settled for just collecting EVPs that some of them, and very few, are interactive, but most don't make any sense. You'll hear somebody say something, and they'll try to interpret what it is, but it doesn't make any sense. And we've become satisfied with that. But the thing is through my experiences, when you leave your body, just the opposite happens. You go into a super conscious level where you can think on in many diverse terms, but the EVPs that I've seen from a lot of different people sounds like the person is developmentally disabled, and that's just not the way it is. So I think that, yeah, there are, and let me tell you this. One of the things I was curious about was how do humans affect the collection of EVPs? Because most of the EVPs I've ever heard, there was somebody collecting it or asking questions.
Yes.
That's where my robot came in, is because they were capable of recording the same type of digital or audio tapes or information, and I was able to collect EVPs with my robots, and they weren't asking any questions. So that told me that this is going on all the time, not necessarily because we have asked a question.
Okay, well, now you have to back up again. So you built robots to collect EVPs. Is that the bottom line?
EVPs and photographic data and night vision data, yes.
And how much success did you have?
A lot. Quite a bit, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Yeah, tremendous amount. In the years past, I've even played a couple for you that were quite startling.
Yes. Do you have, Halloween is coming. And I'm always looking for EVPs, especially good ones. Do you have some good ones?
I have, excuse me, what I've done is I've categorized them into indiscernible, semi-discernible, discernible, and then interactive. And I have some interactive EVPs, and what an interactive EVP is where you ask a question and it actually responds to your question.
Yes.
I have some that are discernible, where they're just saying things that may not necessarily apply to what you're asking or what you're doing, but you can understand it. Then I have the semi, which says a few words here and there, but you have to guess at what they mean. And then I have noises and various bizarre, indiscernible voice-like things that I've recorded. So I have those 4 different categories.
Do those come from 4 different kinds of entities?
I would say the discernible, indiscernible, and the lower ones are kind of like a background noise, kind of like an echo. They're not interactive. They're always there because the robot seems to pick them up. If it was only there when humans, then I'd say they were, had an interactive quality to them. But because the robots can pick them up, no matter if you can drive away for miles and the robot still records it, I'd say your background noise.
Yes, Doctor, your robots. Describe your robots to me. They could physically move. They could take video. They obviously record audio. What were they capable of doing, and why use a robot?
Well, one of my more popular ones that I really have used quite a bit is it has motion sensors. It also has an internal EMF meter, electromagnetic field meter, and it has directional probe, which it can turn the probe toward the source of the EMF and move the whole robot will move and follow or chase the EMF reading and record while it's doing that. And it will maneuver around furniture, walls, whatever. So that's one of my favorite ones, and through that one, and it will also send back the data to a base station, so I can record it on a recording device. So that's one of my favorite ones. Another one is that I have, it's very small, and it's semi-autonomous, where I can control it via remote control, and while it's in a particular location, I can send it a program where it will go into autonomous mode and start patrolling and recording data on its own. So those are the kinds that I've been using over the years, and they have collected data.
That is so totally cool. It really figures somebody who worked on the U.S. space program would do what you're doing if they moved into the paranormal, and you've done it.
Well, think about it. I remember when I was at Langley, and they have a really awesome museum there. I think it was Voyager. They have a model of Voyager there. And it made sense to me that we used, because I'd been in the space program for a long time, I was even on a design team of GPS, when we just had it, didn't have it in cell phones, just the military was using it. So I've been in the space program for a very long time, and it didn't make sense to me that the paranormal was another unknown, and for the unknowns outside the Earth's atmosphere, we use probes. So it made perfectly good sense that to use a probe for the unknowns that are here in the paranormal community, and they're not afraid. They don't run off. They don't guess at what it is. They don't have desires on what they want it to be. They just record data, and that's the part that was really intriguing to me, and I wanted it to be autonomous, so I programmed it to think for itself.
And they really would stay there until Bigfoot crushed them.
It probably would, but the video footage you'd get would be incredible.
Yes, it would. And that's the whole idea, I suppose. Look, we've got 1 million phone calls. People want to talk to you, so let's give it a shot here. First-time caller line, I think Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Oh, that's me, Art.
It is.
My name is Mike. Boy, it's a thrill to talk to you, and especially tonight with Dr. Taylor. I'm trying to make this brief.
Thank you.
I've drove trucks for many years, and around 2000, I went to nights, and a couple coworkers told me about the Art Bell show. But not long after that, you had Albert on about Soul Traveler, and as a child, many years, I had the opportunity to fly around and out of body, and I didn't appreciate what it was at that age. And it had stopped for a couple decades. And one of the things you had mentioned on our show back then was the sleep, disruption, which of course going to nights did. So I started having them again, and I was thrilled that it was just like Art, I kept popping back.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, that's awesome. I love that. I love to hear that.
Okay, if you have a question, sir, please go ahead.
I wanted to tell you, as a cat lover, Art, you'll like this. I had a young cat that loved to, basically I had an out-of-body where I interacted with my kitten. And it was very bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
I was home, and the cat always wanted to be picked up and put up above closets in our bedroom. Anytime I got up out of bed, he would beg or jump up and want to be picked up, and that was something we did. So I was laying there, I went out of body, and I was trying to keep calm. I had this presence of mind, like you said, floating, and we had a canopy bed, and I'm thinking, man, I'm going to go through this canopy. Right at the moment I look down, I see my cat asleep at my legs, and just like in an old ghost movie, I saw his spirit. He looked up at me, and he kind of separated, and he reached up, stood up, and tried to put his claws on me. And I'm freaking out because it's like those old hot air balloon movies where you're trying to just, I was trying to stay calm, and sure enough, we both popped back. I woke up, I lifted my head, and he was asleep like nothing had happened.
All right, so you're saying that you and your cat both had an OBE. One good thing about it, if you get scratched out of body, when you come back, you're all healed up, right, Albert?
Yeah, and no cat fever. No astral cat fever. That's an awesome, one of the things that used to happen to me when I would leave my body is I had a German Shepherd, and he would be under my window, and the moment I detached and started floating upward, he would start barking like crazy.
Really?
And then when I would return to my physical body and reconnect, he'd stop. And this went on almost all night. So animals are, it's probably very normal to them to sense these subtle energies, of one of which is our astral form, and it's probably no big deal to them because they're born into that ability and see it all the time.
They don't have the hang-ups we have. Let's go to outside the country in Harmony. Where are you, Harmony?
I'm in New Zealand.
New Zealand, okay.
I'm in the top of the South Island.
Okay.
I've had quite a few out-of-body phenomena in the last couple of decades, or even longer than that. But I had one that was particularly profound, and I thought I might share it with you. We were actually talking about astral projection, and my friend said, "Hey, so if you want to astral project, first thing you do is connect your consciousness to something that you perceive to be outside of yourself."
Mm-hmm.
So I was walking through the woods. This is up in Bellingham, Washington, years ago, and I thought, I'm going to try this. And beautiful day, and I see a tree, and it's about 20 or 30 yards away from me.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to astral project to that tree over there for starters. So I stood still, and I thought, I am the tree. The tree and I are one. Hello, tree. And right when I thought that, this bird flew up and landed right by my feet. And it just sat there. And it must have been there for half a minute or longer. It didn't identify me as being anything other than a tree. And it was such a profound experience right then, because I realized that was what the power of it was.
So you were, for a moment, you were a tree.
I was a tree, and the bird saw me as being a tree. And that's why there was no fear within this little bird. As soon as I began to think, hey, maybe I'm St. Francis or something, I'm going to go pick up the bird or whatever, the bird flew away.
That is so cool. I really appreciate that story. That's amazing. So you can, in essence, make yourself...
I think he identified so much with it. His consciousness could project and identify with the tree, which is a living thing.
Yeah.
Is that the bird, which has senses that I don't understand fully, was able to did not perceive him as a normal threat as they do in humanoids generally.
So to the bird, he was a tree?
He wasn't a threat. Let's say.
He wasn't a threat.
It wasn't a threat or something to run away from. It was just another part of the environment. That's interesting. That's really fascinating. But I have some friends who are animal whisperers or whatever you want to call them. And I have seen some things that I cannot understand on how they can connect with dogs or cats or even wild animals, lions and things like that, and they don't harm them, and they have this connection. And I don't understand that, but I think it's just another talent that the soul has to connect with this environment.
And by the way, while we're on the subject, that's really what this is. I mean, would you certify that more or less, that what we're talking about is that thing called a soul that is actually leaving the body?
Definitely, because it would be, I think we would be very in error if we thought of ourselves as the physical body and just the humanoid being. There is something far greater than that is made of stardust, let's say, because we're like star children, and so is everything else around us. So we're not separated from the physical and animal things in our environment. We're connected to them. The only thing that separates us that I've noticed is when we take a fearful stance, and that brings in a whole other set of circumstances. But we're connected to everything around us.
Well, that sounds wonderful to me, but Doctor, I can imagine the human brain, as complex as it is, being able to project itself with what we are talking about as an OBE, without it necessarily having to be what we traditionally call the soul. And we don't understand certainly everything about our brains. They're incredibly complex, and frankly, we don't know. Doctor, hold on. Sorry, I don't mean to be drifting away from this, but why couldn't the human brain do this without it being what we classically call the soul, which is a religious thing, kind of, sort of, right? Don't pay any attention to me. I have no idea.
Midnight in the Desert is a wild trip across the Days Divisor. Get your ticket to ride by calling 1-952. Call ART. That's 1-952-225-5278.
Dr. Albert Taylor is my guest, and he's a very patient man. And these are very, very difficult things to talk about. They really are. I can imagine, I guess this is what I was trying to say, I can imagine that our brains might have the capacity to project the self without necessarily projecting what we think of classically as the soul. But you would argue with that, I'm sure, Doctor, right?
Well, okay, let me explain. There's a couple of things that I wanted to share with you. Is the difference between spirituality and religion is the difference between being human and being an American. You are a human no matter where you are. You choose to be an American. That's the difference. You're a spirit no matter what you choose. You can choose any religion you want, but you're a spirit, basically. This is the thing. I started off with a bunch of questions. I wanted to know, why is this happening? Why, if it's just an intellectual brain experience, then why, I've been a member of the International Association of Near-Death Studies for quite a long time, and I've taught 8 million people have had near-death experiences in the United States alone. So why, when some of these people suffer the body that they're occupying suffers a physical death, and everything goes to zero, and then they come back, how come, if it's just the brain, now they can't wear watches because watches stop? How come light bulbs blow out, don't last as long as they should? How come when they go to the grocery store, cash registers malfunction? If it's just the death of a physical organism, none of those should be happening. It doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't happen every time with everybody, but if you look at 8 million people, you're going to have a higher number that has these difficulties. How come a friend of mine who was diagnosed with cancer 15, almost 20 years ago, was given 5 years, and had a near-death experience, how come her cancer, she's in remission and she's still alive? Because her awareness, according to her, has changed on who and what she is. I can't answer those by just looking at the brain.
Doctor, you don't affect cash registers, do you?
No, I haven't had a near-death experience, but I have talked to people who do affect electronic devices, who can't wear watches because the watches actually stop.
Right.
Who bulbs do blow out. It happens. It happens quite a bit, and it's happened years and years ago, and it's happening now. So if we're just machines, organic machines, that doesn't make any sense that we should be able to affect these items.
Well, I was going to say, if you are that kind of a person, they should keep you the heck away from the shuttle with a million moving parts. All right, let's try the first-time caller line up in Victoria, BC, I think. Hello?
Hello. Yeah, I love the show, and I'm really interested in the subject.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just wondering, when you're in a very deep sleep, and do you think it's possible that you start seeing things that you can't remember, and that would cause you to react. And my wife says sometimes when I fall asleep, I'm in a very deep sleep, I start to scream.
Definitely. Well, let me give you an example. How many times have you had a dream where you didn't remember the dream till maybe days later when something triggered it? Well, that memory of that dream was inside of you somewhere, but it took some outward stimulus to trigger that. So yes, you can have a dream, and I don't think that dream is just dormant. It could have some type of effect on you when it's triggered by some type of physical stimulus. So yes, I do believe that is possible.
And with that, we will have to leave it there for tonight. Come on back tomorrow for the conclusion, the final part of the out-of-body experiences with Albert Taylor. Until then, please make sure you do like, share, and subscribe. Be kind to one another, and of course, as always, release the Krakens as we march along here from day one. Have a great night's sleep. If you try an out-of-body experience, best of luck to you. And until then, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow as we march along here from day one.